To give you guys a little heads up, we'll be talking about OTbase Insight today, which is our new AI-powered chat interface engine for OTbase, which provides users a alternate, less learning curve way to interact with OTbase, but also a way to get data sets back that may be difficult or not possible currently with OTbase. Also, what we're aiming for here is something that can look at that data and then provide insights back to you, to your SOC operators, to people who have a vested interest in maintaining that security posture, a way for them to have a better idea of where they should be focusing those remediation efforts. Are you good, Anthony? All right. So the first thing we have here on OTbase Insight is the configuration. If anybody, let me ask before I get started, how many of you guys in here have OTbase, are familiar with it, have used it? I know you guys have. Anybody else, are y'all pretty new to it? Okay, so I'll start a little bit lower on the level of OTbase inventory here. That's what our main flagship product, OTbase Asset Inventory, allows you to, using discovery process, generate a landscape of all of your OT assets across all of your locations and organize those in a logical way that makes sense and allows you to navigate through here and check out everything. Now, one of the main selling points of OTbase is that we provide lots of contextualized data. So there's all these metadata dimensions for all of these locations, OT systems, software that you have installed, devices, and all of that. That's all organized over here. I'm not going to do a big full OTbase demo, but you kind of get an idea of what we have here. You can have all of your locations, all of your networks listed. I have this filtered. All of your OT systems, your processes associated with those systems, etc. So it's a way of organizing your information and then being able to look at the metadata dimensions associated with that. OTbase Insight is sort of the next step in that allows us to look at that data in a different way with AI power behind the scenes to tell us where maybe we should be focusing those efforts, where we have security risks, vulnerabilities, etc. So one thing, if you're an OTbase user, you have a couple of different ways to get to Insight. You can either open it straight up in a browser or you can get to it from OTbase. For those of you who already use OTbase, to set that up very quickly, you just come over here to your administration and then your settings, and in your metadata section, there's a very simple server location that you input here. That indicates to OTbase that you have Insight installed and spun up on a server somewhere, and then you can get to it from within OTbase. And that server can be anywhere you want. And for my case, I have OTbase running on one server, and then I have OTbase Insight running on another because, as you would imagine, it requires a little more horsepower. Because we are running this locally, we're not sending the data off to an external cloud-based AI infrastructure. We're doing this all locally with small language models, medium language models, something in the realm of 7 billion parameters, maybe up to like 20 billion parameters. So once you have that all set up, you can, within OTbase, you might be looking at something like a device here, FlatRock, for example. We'll go over here and take a look. I have that selected, then I can come up and click on Insight, and that's going to launch us into OTbase Insight and automatically generate a report with some tables, or there's tables in OTbase, and you can backlink all this back to OTbase. You can see all that within here. So, but the tables are filtered more specifically to the security dimensions of whatever object we're getting to. So in this case, it tells me, FlatRock has 390 devices. It has 45 network segments. It tells us what our primary vendor is in that location. It tells us what our device type distribution is, how many AC drives we have, how many PLCs, etc. And it also tells us these important security data points. You have 108.5 thousand vulnerabilities in FlatRock, 3,831 of those classified as known exploited vulnerabilities, and we have 112 critical devices, Critical in the context of OTbase, meaning we have assigned some criticality value to a device. It's critical to engineering or continuity or something like that, to a process in our asset infrastructure. So we have 17 devices in that location with outdated software, meaning it's end of life, it's discontinued, what have you. And then it tells us which is the most common of those devices that are running outdated software. And we also have 20 devices that haven't been patched in over 30 days. And it tells us what we have for devices that aren't compliant. So that's all great, right? But we want to do other things with this. We want to be able to then ask this system questions about this particular data. Or even if let's say I'm a SOC operator or somebody responsible for security, I don't even have access to OTbase. That belongs to Kevin here. That's your realm. You are the inventory owner. You make the user accounts. You are responsible for that security. You may not even want to give me access to OTbase because I could screw up your data or do something that I shouldn't be doing. So maybe you provide me OTbase OTbase Insight standalone, so that I, as the person responsible for maintaining the security posture of all this, has some visibility into that asset inventory without having to get directly in there. And this query took about 60 seconds because it's very involved, so I'm not going to run that live here. I just did it right before we started. But what I asked it was, of my US locations, which one should security remediation be focused on? And it went through and looked at all of my locations and came up with this analysis. So we have priority 1, Charlotte buildings D, and F, and it tells me why. D is my highest risk location with 137 devices that have critical vulnerabilities. 17 of those are known exploited vulnerabilities. 99.6% of my devices have stale patch status, which means they haven't been patched in days, in this case 30. So that has my largest device count. Sorry about that. That has my largest collection of devices with significant vulnerability exposure. So we don't want to, if we're responsible for remediating this sort of stuff and we have budget involved and we have time involved, it's a lot to go into OTbase, learn it, have Kevin teach it to me, whatever the case is. If there's a learning curve there. What was your name? Jeff. Have Jeff go in there and teach that to me. Okay, great. Then I go into OTbase and I'm looking through all of these tables. Okay, how am I going to find all that data? That's where the real value of Insight is being able to interact with this in a natural language way and get that information using AI power to derive those insights from the actual data. So all of this data is on the back end. Basically what the AI does is it looks at your query, it translates that into an intent. So in this case, we're looking at sort of a comparison, a security posture. Then it runs SQL query via scripting, bubbles that back up behind the scenes, and then the AI will look at that data and make this, generate this insight on that data. So before I go any further, I just want to make sure I leave time for questions. Does anybody have any questions so far about what this is or what we're doing here?
Just capabilities, man, whatever.
Well, yeah, we are. We're definitely building capabilities continuously. In fact, let me see if I have it here.
Does it tie into other data sets? Can it do API calls to?
Currently, this would be purely going in and out of your OTbase. Correct. Yep. And so what we're doing, the way we manage this is we package a local AI model with it. It's a semi-fine-tuned model, so that way we don't even have to require that whoever's installing this go out and pull down a model from somewhere and install it and all that. We ship it with it. It all remains on-prem, just like OTbase Asset Inventory has always been. We do all of this on-prem. We're not sending your data off across the internet to the cloud and potentially exposing your best practices and your vulnerabilities to some, risky actor out there who might want to do bad things to your inventory. So, and just yesterday, in fact, we had just yesterday we had a question about, let's see if I can get this. Tell me about Flat Rock. We had a question about whether or not we could export the data that underlies this. And so I thought that was actually a great idea, and I built that in here since we left the conference yesterday. And essentially what will happen is, this is not a great example because it's not a table, but we now have this where if you ask for something like, let's say, show me Windows 7 devices that haven't been patched in over 30 days, right? So we'll grab that query, and that should return us a list if this works like I expect it to. And it'll give you some metadata dimensions of all of those devices that it returns. Again, all backlinked back into OTbase so we can see more granular detail if we want to, and if we have the security access to be able to do that. But so you can see this generated my chart, but it didn't just show me the Windows 7 device, because we could do that with algorithmic scripting and canned, pre-canned queries that you just click on and say, okay, show me the Windows 7 devices that meet that criteria. That's not that amazing. But what is cool is being able to do that and give the user back something they didn't even ask for. We just asked for Windows 7 devices that haven't been patched. But this also gave that back to me with location distribution, with patterns in that hardware, with some critical concerns. And all that's done by instructing the AI what's important to us in OTbase and allowing it to make those assumptions and those statements based on what it knows about OT security, what it knows about risk assessment, and those sort of dimensions of this, and then provides that back to me, even though I didn't ask for it, because we want whoever is interacting with this system, if I'm a SOC operator somewhere and I have to ask these kinds of questions, these things are probably important to me. And some of them may not be important, some of them may be. And over time, once we start having users really interact with us and sending this more feedback to us, then we'll really start to flesh this out and get it hyper-focused on what we know is important to our users. This was all built with what I think is important, but I'm an idiot sometimes. So, maybe I think this is important, but maybe you don't. Maybe Jeff, Kevin, y'all don't think this is. But over time, as we continue to develop and receive that feedback, all of this will become more specific to the feedback that we've received. But, just to go through this again, you can see it provides some immediate action that it thinks is required. Well, we have Windows 7 it's reached end of support in 2020. Here's 89 devices that are running that unsupported OS with no security patches for 4 years, making them prime targets. Great. And here's my list of that. And then again, we can now export this. This was functionality added yesterday. So whereas if you're an OTbase, you can filter by a couple of different things, maybe location, maybe one or two other things. This allows you to really generate your own custom data set. I want to see devices, Windows 7 devices in the USA that haven't been patched in over 30 days, that have a name that starts with ABC, and I can get exactly that data set back. Then I can export that and I can go hand it over to my field operator to go out and upgrade those devices, or somebody that's sitting in the network operations center upgrade those or whatever. But you kind of get the idea, right? It's another way. You can look at it as either an add-on to OTbase Insight that provides additional value layer, an intelligence layer on top of that. But you can also look at it as just a different way to interact with it for, again, that use case where maybe you have somebody that doesn't have the time or means to want to go in and learn OTbase asset inventory, but they still need to be able to ask and get questions about their asset inventory. And that either means they have to come to you and ask, and you have to go find that information. And you probably can pretty quickly because you know OTbase very well and you can get that information. But maybe you can't, or maybe you're on vacation or whatever, or maybe we just want to remove that middleman and allow them to go in and get that information themselves without risking the integrity of your data or the security of your data. Any questions? Yes. I'm sorry?
Does it support the custom fields that we create?
It does not currently, but that would not be a heavy lift to have it do that. Yeah. All right.
comparing to like capabilities for public LLMs, like can it do user contextualization? So like you have one persona in OTbase that has permissions to a specific subset and like knows that the assets it's only interested in responding on, or can it also provide queries outside of the scope of access to?
Yeah, well, this is great. That's great feedback. Currently, no, but anything that we can get out of the OTbase API, essentially what we do is we branch off, we fork off the OTbase inventory into a separate database that is written in a way that is more suitable for AI contextualization. So it's essentially a duplicate database of the data that lives on the same server. And if the information is exposed in the database, then yes, we can absolutely be able to first scope this down to only what that user has access to. We could also scope it down to allowing them to do update statements from here. If, right now, if you guys, as OTbase users, you want to go update 1,000 devices, how do you do that currently? You put together a spreadsheet, you write a Python script, and you do that. This would ultimately allow you to say, update all devices that meet X, Y, and Z criteria to add this tag, this extended field, this whatever you want to do. And one sentence, it does all that on the back end, updates those devices, and you're good to go. But back to your question, if it's something we can do in OTbase as far as administrative permission scoping, then we could scope OTbase Insight into doing that, honoring that same scope. And I believe user information is available via the API. Am I mistaken there?
What kind of information are you referring to?
So we're talking about like if we have a mixed environment with different product lines, we have different types of OT engineer personas. So like a SCADA controller versus a DCS controller would be two different people querying two different data with two different contexts. And so you want each person when they interact with the LLM only working from their context and only getting response.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so this is, within OT-based inventory, this is addressed by user groups. We have a tight access control mechanism that allows you to just scope the access that a particular user group may have to parameters such as location, such as network association or system association, right?
Agreed.
And so what you will usually find in an OT-based installation is that you have user groups such as engineering, and that might then also be further divided into like site level access. Okay, so this is already within OT-based inventory, and this information is also exposed to Insight. You're just not at this point in time. You're not taking advantage of that, but that is on the agenda. Okay, so that's already part of the roadmap.
Yeah, the ability, the access you would have as a given user to even sync your local database would be scoped similarly to how it's scoped in OTbase. So if Kevin had only given me access to the Flat Rock site, then I wouldn't have 5,693 devices up here. I would only have 390 because when I download OTbase Insight locally and I sync that database, it would only give me those devices. Now, that's probably, everybody would not have their own database in that way. What you would do is you would have this running on a server, so all of the information would be there, but your ability to access it and ask questions about it and what you would see as far as your available devices would be scoped to you as a user with your specific access level. Yeah. Yes.
So today, mostly it functions as a AI reporting tool more than anything. Give me information about the assets that exist inside of OTbase.
Yep.
There are enhancements coming on future roadmap about changing my assets. Hey, go tag all my assets associated with these locations because I need to peel them off into a separate database.
Yep.
Or I'm going to divest of those assets and get them out of here, make the changes, or generally help me align my data better for whatever use case I'm in. So that's a future use case.
Mm-hmm.
Associated with future use cases, a couple of questions. Do you have any primary focus areas on future use cases you want to bring to market as part of this capability? And then two, what does your feature release cadence look like? and how to, as a customer, how would I get updates? What frequency? What is that message?
So I'll answer the first part of that, and just to recap that for the video, the first thing, sorry, what was your name?
Levi.
What was it?
Levi.
Levi. So the first thing Levi asked was, he outlined our where we're at currently in this release, which is basically it's a reporting tool, it's an intelligence layer on top of OTbase, and then near future we will have the ability to do more things such as updating devices and things like that from natural language interface. And then the question was about what are our future enhancements, and that's a good question, and that really boils down to user feedback. There's a million things that I think I would like to do in there, but I have no clue if that's actually valuable to our customers. I have some idea, but the sky's the limit with what we can do between using the AI and algorithms combined to deliver those different functions later on. Once we get that kind of feedback from real life users, right? And I think that dovetails into your next question, was the release cadence. That's hard to say at this point. But what I can say is what we would likely do, and Ralph will stop me if this is not correct, is we would want to put this into sort of a beta phase first, where we have a few trusted partners that we work with who are interested in this to use it and provide that kind of feedback, so we can really get some real world data on what are these guys actually going to want to do with this. You know, you're probably familiar now, most programs are doing some sort of AI embedded functionality to good or, you know, worse degrees. Jira has AI Rovo chat in it now that is good sometimes, but it's basically just a glorified JQuery query, and it does not do anything amazing in my opinion. But everybody's trying to do something like that, and I think a lot of people don't really know what the use case is for that. I think everybody's looking at it like, well, it'll make things easier. Okay, but in what way, you know? So when I was looking at this, it was what actually provides useful data back to a user that would help them. And these are the kinds of things that we're thinking with just a couple of our heads put together. But until we start actively soliciting feedback from those users, it's kind of a guessing game at this point, like it is with everybody. But I think the main focus for us is all functionality, past, present, and future, will be around surfacing important data back to users that generates actionable insights. So security concerns, outdated software, devices that have, you know, reached end of their life that you should probably look at. If I'm a CTO or somebody in a company and I have access to this, I might want to look at that and go, why on earth do I still have, you know, 800 devices running Windows XP out there? We need to get those upgraded ASAP. Now I have directive for my team to go out in the field and take care of that. I can print that list and give it to somebody who can give it to somebody, and we can get that taken care of quickly and more efficiently than, first of all, not even knowing that's the case out there, but secondly, having to try to mine all that data manually can be cumbersome at times. And this will ultimately enable us to recall that data in the specific way that we want. And we could, I believe I have already tested, can you take this prompt and say, well, I want to see these dimensions when you give me back that report? Yeah, you can do that. Give me back Windows 7 devices that haven't been patched in 30 days. But maybe next time I say, I don't need to see all this, just give me X, Y, and Z. And the LLM, or in our case, the SLM, is intelligent enough to make those calls and adjust that accordingly. So you really get only exactly what you want back.
Just for some additional context, if you ask about capabilities, just keep in mind this whole concept can do so much more today if you would associate it with a public AI platform such as Claude. Okay, the constraints that we are dealing here is this is all running locally, and therefore, according to what Wes has told you, we need to get this feedback about the use cases and problems that customers are interested in, because we need to craft them into the workflow, and we need to help the AI, because our AI is not as smart as Claude, because this thing is running on a glorified gaming PC, okay? And not on an AI data center in space.
Yes.
You can do that today, so you can interface with Claude or with another public platform, but then you give away your knowledge, okay? And OTbase Insight is specifically targeting our valued customers who don't like that. They want to keep their knowledge secret in-house. They want to self-host. So this is something that we have to keep in mind. This is where we presently, so these capabilities are limited. If you would feed Claude with this data, oh, the sky is the limit already today. Another thing, when we try to figure out good use cases, good value propositions, honestly, at this time, we don't know. We started this whole discussion with our customers probably 18 months ago. And 18 months ago, none of our customers, when I asked them, how about some chat interface, none of them said, oh, that's a great idea. I was looking for that for years. Now you have it, that's great. Nobody said that, okay? And then, about a year later, I thought, I just have this hunch that something is coming. So we were just building it anyway, even without customers forcing us to do it. And then something funny happens today and yesterday in those demos. All of a sudden, fantasies completely go wild. But can you also show me like where firewall rules need to be changed, etc.? Guys, come on, give me a break, right? So we can get there, but it's going to take a while because of these constraints. And certainly I would also imagine that some of these crazy wild ideas, they will fizzle out over time, because as with any new technology, people realize, oh, probably that wasn't such a good idea after all, right? So maybe we just keep the firewall tuning on for our own, for engineers, because we don't even know if we can trust this stuff, right? So this is where we stand right now. I would say this is a very interesting early stage where we're just throwing something out, and if you tell us, oh, that's not good enough, great, then tell us what you want to see, because we have the engineering capability to make it happen, all on a glorified database. Because what we expect is that the typical OT customer, the typical engineering style customer, will not have the budget, let's just say like 100K, 500K, to just solve the problem with hardware.
Yeah, and to add to that and kind of recap for the recording here, that's exactly right. If you're using something like Codex or Claude Code on the back end as your inference engine on this, the sky's the limit, because you can ask it anything, and if there's not a method for doing that today, Claude or those programs have the multi-million-dollar hardware behind them to build that in real time and give you what you want. It might write a Python script to do exactly everything you just asked it for. When you're working with smaller models, in this case, something that's running on, an $800 NVIDIA 3060 RTX, which is not even a top-end graphics card for gaming at this point, you have to do more of a mix of anticipating what customers are going to ask and then building that in algorithmically and intertwining that with the small language model, right? So that's where the constraint really comes in, is you can't just open the floodgates and have people do anything, because it's just not possible. A small language model cannot possibly know your database. What it can know is various tools and processes you've predefined: count queries, show list, aggregate X, aggregate Y, compare X and Z or whatever. You can predefine all of those. And then what the small language model does primarily is it extracts the user's intent. That gives that to an algorithm on the back end, which then gets the data from the SQL database, gives it back, and then the AI makes the insights on that data. That's very different from an experience you might have with something like Claude or Codex, where you really, all you need is to point it to your database and say, we want to do X, Y, and Z. Of course, there is a lot more involved algorithmically to even get Claude to go in and do something like that effectively and not hallucinate data and give you, which it will. But like you said, the sky's the limit if you want to go down that path. Otherwise, you have to have some predefined functionality. And right now, what we have available is what I thought is desired functionality. But what do I know? I know my world and what's important to me, but that might be very different from what's important to Kevin or Jeff or Anthony or Levi or anybody else out there that's going to use this. So that feedback ultimately, when we begin having users test this and provide that, is where we're really going to see things shape up in an impactful way. This is an MVP you see here that's the result of 3 months or so of me going in and developing all things around this small language model. But it is limited currently intentionally because I wanted a small set of what we can show users, say this is where we're at, this is where we think we can go, but what do you guys want? And then from there we decide next where we go from there.
I was not at the beginning of the presentation, but what is your data source? You have your own devices or software for collecting data from the OT, or you just based on the external
So in OTbase Asset Inventory, we have software that goes along with that, discovery software, that combs the network and finds all of your devices. You can also manually import data from exports from Yokogawa devices or whatever. All that you dump into OTbase, and then that's stored in a Dockerized SQL container somewhere on your host machine. OTbase Insight is similar. The difference being we extract all of the data you have in OTbase Asset Inventory via the API, which exposes nearly every metadata dimension available. We pull all that out and create a duplicate database that is different in that the schema is really tailored to what the AI model needs to interact with more fluidly and more effectively. So it's essentially just a duplicate database of OTbase Asset Inventory catered towards the AI usage.
Customer has own solution based on IDS, and it has already kind of the asset inventory, but without any additional intelligence. Is possible to connect OTbase to the existing solution? This ID, with the network solution, which is existing asset inventory from another company.
So you're asking if OT Asset Inventory, OTbase Asset can integrate with another asset management system like?
Yeah.
So there are some integrations that we have in place today for, we can integrate with things like Splunk, Power BI, different, are we integrating with competitors? No, but can you integrate with a lot of other business intelligence type software like Splunk, Power BI, things like that? Yes, you can. We have existing connectors for that kind of stuff today. Qualys? I don't think we have a Qualys one, no. I'm guessing this is something you guys want. Noted. But that's another license. What if you could get the same business intelligence with OTbase Insight instead, right?
Well, that's what we were talking about. Yeah, if I can get an API call where I can pull that data right out of Qualys and we keep everything internal.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically we know we're missing model off of the devices here because we don't have it, because we don't do WMI queries against manufacturing equipment. So instead, reach out to Qualys via the API for those devices, pull back the model, and insert it in OTbase and we have a complete version.
Now, I might be speaking out of turn here. This is above my pay grade, but it would be theoretically possible to, if you have another database carrying data, the sync process on OTbase Insight, which is different from OTbase Asset Inventory. This does not do discovery. It syncs from your OTbase asset and pulls it over. You could theoretically pull it from another source and stuff that into that database. But that would, although that's theoretically possible, that would be a fairly custom integration because every database is different. And then how do we stuff that into our schema in a way that makes sense?
It's just an API call.
But,
Yeah.
and we're doing it now, right? So
Yep.
we're pulling it. Well, I mean, you're telling me you got a tool that might be able to, I mean, right now we pull it out of Qualys and put it in a spreadsheet, and then we transition it over and.
So it's in OTbase, is what you're saying?
We're trying to get it.
We're getting it.
Oh, okay.
But as we do new sites, we have more and more of these.
Yeah.
I get tired of putting it into discovery so that it's always there.
So yeah, I'll just say it would be theoretically possible to have the data sync process of Insight sync from another source as well. Theoretically. Now, whether we would allow that, that's not my decision, but it would be theoretically possible, yeah.
I mean,
to
even,
talk about.
yeah, even if you were to be able to pull back the devices that are missing that and make a call over to show us the data, and then we can take that and perform it.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So sort of it's becoming at that point, like a pseudo import tool.
I'm tired of doing X lookups.
Yeah, okay, okay. I understand what you're saying, yep. Any other questions? I'm sorry?
I asking about the licensing model.
The licensing model. So first of all, you gotta have an OTE-based inventory license, and then it's a percentage from that license fee. And just to give you an idea, OT-based inventory is licensed per device by number of devices. So when you have, let's just say, 10,000 devices, it costs you X amount of dollars. When you have 100,000, it's going to be much cheaper per device. Okay?
Yeah.
Until you get money back from us. It's going to be so cheap. And you're not there yet, Kevin. No. Still have a long way to go. And so, just like with other connectors, the question was asked earlier. So we do have connectors for Splunk, for ServiceNow, etc. They come at a percentage of your base license fee. The same thing is going to happen with OTbase Insight. Now, the good news is we will have a beta program for Insight that is going to be free for our good customers for, let's just say, the first 3 months, okay? So if you are quick and buy your OT-based inventory license rather quickly, then you could take advantage of the beta program, because you then get a free license for Insight for 3 months. And then we would expect in return that you provide your feedback. You would say, oh, it's going to produce a shitty answer for this query. That's very important for us. And then behind the scenes, we are going to do the fine tuning. You won't get those shitty answers if you would use the MCP server that also is part of the product, and let Claude or another platform, Gemini, access your data, but then you expose the data to that provider. Okay, and like I said earlier, this is the bottleneck that you're dealing with here. Our aim is to have it run locally and still match a response time of around 10 seconds.
Yeah.
That's the difficult piece. That's the heavy lift.
I understand. And you also deliver the solution. Can deliver the solution by your team, or is it also to cooperate with another companies? Because I am from Accenture, and we also deliver the solution from many vendors for our customers. Yes. And theoretically asking, for example, if it's possible to deliver OT-based solution by another company, or you need to deliver by your team.
No, we have a partner program.
Yeah. I asked you about.
Yeah. He's your man.
Who asked that question? Who was with Accenture?
I am.
All right, so are you saying you guys would manage OTbase for another company? Is that what
No,
you're saying?
just I mean about the implementation and delivery, not manage.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, I got you.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, that's an interesting concept.
Well, I think that's it then. Thank you guys. I appreciate it.